Hey there folks, this is slide 24 and that's where we last left off. This is our first official definition of meiosis. We've studied how gametes are made. We've looked at chromosome traffic between the cells making sperm and egg. We know that the cells of the testes or ovaries produce gametes or sperm and eggs that have less chromosomes. But this is our first official definition, so let's write it down in our notebook as slide 24. It says the process produces sex cells or gametes. We know that. And it says it produces haploid cells. So this is a new word, haploid. Let's give the word haploid a new color just to represent that it stands out. It's a special word. Haploid means it's cells with only one copy of each allele. So we've studied pictures and we understand that when a cell of the testes or the ovaries, when they're making sperm and egg, we know that they get less chromosomes. Well, if they get less chromosomes, they're also getting less alleles. So they end up with one copy only of each allele when they make the sperm. There's a website I pulled up just from Google Images. I Googled sperm and alleles. And you can see that the gametes, eggs from mom and sperm from father, you can see that the dad has two versions in his normal body cells. He has a dominant and a recessive version. Mom does too. Mom has a dominant recessive version of the A gene. Now we don't know what the A gene is about. It doesn't matter. But what's important to know is that each person does have two copies of each allele, or versions of each gene. You got a dominant allele and a recessive A allele. But look at the sperm. The sperm and eggs, so we have eggs here and sperm here. You can see that they don't have two copies of the A alleles. They don't have both. They only have one. So a sperm is either going to get the dominant allele or they're going to get the recessive allele. Same for the eggs. So eggs and sperm can never contain two of the same gene. They can't have two alleles for the same gene. Sperm and eggs cannot. Alright, as you can see, it's the same picture here. You can see a lot of chromosomes at the initial cell. Think of this as in the testes or the ovary. But as the cell goes through its divisions, by the end you can see that the remaining cells have fewer chromosomes. So the sperm can never contain the same number of chromosomes as the original cells from the testes or ovaries. They'll always have fewer. They'll have fewer chromosomes, and because they have fewer chromosomes, they also have fewer alleles, because the alleles are attached to the chromosomes. It says investigate, so we look at this picture, just as we already have been doing, and it says the change in chromosome number during meiosis. So we investigate this, and let's list three facts or observations. So let's list three facts or what we observe from chromosome number as you go down. One, you could start it out by saying observation one is there are 4 chromosomes in the starting cell, and then you could talk about how it changes as you go down. Or you could list 3 things that have to do with chromosome number as you go down. Good luck. Slide 25. Here, slide 25 is a repeat of what you've seen before. We already have these notes. So I repeat, for slide 25, do not copy these down again because we've already technically done this slide before. It's located on slide 17. But you notice slide 17 didn't have an activity to do. So we're going to come back to it here. Now, please note here on slide 25. Now, we may do this in class. It may be assigned as homework. May even turn up as a quiz question. But right here it says, apply concepts from segregation. That is the multiple copies of chromosomes we have or multiple alleles we have for each gene, how they get separated in our sperm and eggs so they're not ever together. It says apply this concept of segregation and above info, this information, to extend your understanding, to challenge your understanding. How much do you know about segregation? And how much do you know about this question? It says, how can parents have so many different children, each with different alleles? So based on this question, you want to try to answer it. You want to answer this question about how parents can have so many different children with different alleles using these words. So this is your word bank. So using these possible words, you want to use in your response to this question. So use as many as you can and test your knowledge. But just create your own original sentences. If that's too hard, you got slide 26 to rescue you. Slide 26 is the same question. How can parents have so many different children with different alleles? But you have this little sentence box here, and you can fill in the blanks as best you can based on the right words here. Just make sure that slide 25 or 26, whichever one you use to do it. If you don't need the sentence box, don't use it. Use it only if you're really struggling. If you're not struggling, you feel confident already, this one's for you. You create your own sentences, grabbing these words as you go. You got it. Slide 27. Slide 27 in your notebook, right? It says draw the Punnett square in the left corner. This is the Punnett square. It's the box with 4 smaller boxes inside it. That's the Punnett square. So draw this like you see it. And then it says circle and label the father's gametes. This has been circled and labeled. It says the father's gametes and the alleles within. Notice the sperm only contains one of each allele. So you have the sperm, you circle them. They need to be positioned just like you see it here. So you're circling and labeling just like you see it. And it says circle and label the mother's gametes. Well, that's what you're doing here. This is the mother's gametes. It's the eggs on the left. An egg here and an egg here. And also identify it or label it as the mother's gametes and the alleles within. It has a recessive allele in this egg and a dominant allele in this egg. Then it says circle the offspring, the fusion of sperm and eggs. The offspring are the insides of the boxes. This is. Now in this example we're talking about plants. So this is sexual reproduction of plants. A male plant and a female plant make babies. These are its seeds or its babies, its offspring. So it says circle the offspring. So you would circle each of these and label them as offspring. Because each of these represents an egg and a sperm fertilizing and fusing here. This is what happens when an egg and sperm fertilize here. When this egg and this sperm produce this one. When this egg and this sperm make this seed or this offspring. Lastly, it says, what's the probability? Probability, that's a new word. We'll talk more about that later. But it's what's the probability or the chance a baby is born with the big S, little s, or dominant recessive allele genotype. Probability means the number of occurrences divided by the total number of offspring. So how many in the inside of this box have a dominant and recessive allele? So how many babies inherited a dominant and recessive allele? Well, that's one and a second one. So there's 2 that have one dominant and one recessive allele. Now it says number of occurrences. Now we decided that. The occurrences are 1 plus 1, which is 2 total. So 2 occurred. Then it says out of the total number of offspring. So there's only 4 total. So 2 out of 4. So there's 4 total. That's the total number of occurrences. And then 2 inherited the right allele genotype. So 2 out of 4 is the probability. And 2 divided by 4 equals 50%. Slide 28 is simply the definition for heterozygote. So try to say that word, heterozygote. It means you have 2 different alleles for a gene. Just like these seeds. These baby offspring here are heterozygotes. Well, these 2 anyways. The 2 we were talking about, 2 out of 4. These are the heterozygotes. It says a person with a dominant and a recessive version of a gene. Here's an example for you. Widow's Peak, they had a dominant and a recessive version, so they have 1 of each. They're heterozygote. And you can see it represented in shapes here. Mom, you got dad, and then the children. They all inherited 2 different allele versions. Slide 29 is homozygote. It's the opposite of heterozygote. And let's write this, of course, for slide 29, the definition. It says having an identical pair of alleles for a gene. So a person with 2 dominant alleles or 2 recessive alleles. And here's the example, hair color gene. H is blonde. A person has 2 recessive H alleles for their genotype. They're homozygote because they're both recessive. Just like in this example, if 2 dogs both are homozygote, they both have 2 little b alleles for the trait, their dogs are guaranteed to get them all. Alright, last but not least, let's do slide 30 here. This is a quiz slide, and you'll find questions like this on your next quiz. Or we'll do this in class as an activity. You never know, but sometimes it's homework. Let's see this. It says on a separate sheet of paper, just ignore that. In your notes, write slide 30, and it says label as problem A. So if we're doing this as homework, just write slide 30 in your notebook, and then we have A example. So we need to answer A. It says observe each pair of chromosomes. There's 4 total. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 pairs. It says for each pair, write their genotype and then label them as heterozygous or homozygous. So it's a quiz on the vocab of slide 28 and 29. Here we have 2 chromosomes and they both contain dominant alleles, B, B. Because they're the same allele versions, they're both dominant, this would be homozygous. This chromosome here has 1 dominant, 1 recessive. They would be known as heterozygous. So for this first one, you would write genotype equals big B, or 2 dominant alleles. Then you would say it equals homozygous. And for the next one, you would label it as genotype equals big B, little b, or dominant recessive allele equals heterozygous, because they're different versions. Continue to complete this box for the other 2 pairs here. So do these 2 on your own. And then let's move on to problem B. Problem B says for each parent, so this is a parent, this is the father, this is the mother, and each offspring, so they had 4 kids, it says label their genotype and then label them as heterozygous or homozygous. So say for mom, dad, and then the brothers. These are all boys apparently. They all look like males. So it's a husband and wife, and they had 4 boys. You need to label each parent and each son as homozygous or heterozygous. Good luck. And that concludes slide 30. And wait for the next video. Hopefully it'll be more exciting than this one. Wish me luck. Bye.